Hello and welcome to the class. My name is Jo. In this class, we're going to be looking at academic writing task 1, specifically the different components or the different parts of it. If you have any questions after the class, remember that what you can do is you can click on this chat icon right at the top of your page, and this will allow you to send us a message with any questions that you have. Now, this is the first of 2 classes on this topic. It will last about 20 minutes. First, we're going to look at the structure of a Task 1 report, and then we're going to look at paraphrasing the question to make an introduction. So by the end of the class, you should be feeling more confident with how to approach the academic writing Task 1. During the class, there will be some questions for you to answer, and these will appear below this video on your screen. I'll tell you when you need to answer them, and I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds to do so. Okay, let's get started. So, academic writing task 1. What is task 1? In task 1, you need to write a report based on an image or a graphic that you were given, and you need to write at least 150 words about it. You could be given any of these types of graphics. So, for example, a line graph, a bar chart, a pie chart, a process, a map, or a table. So any of these types of graphics that we've just seen on the screen, these could be the ones that you get in your IELTS test. Now, they're all very different. The important thing to remember is that the structure of the report always remains the same for each of those different types. So if we learn more about this structure, it means that it helps you then to know how to approach it, whichever type of graphic you get. So let's look at the structure for task 1. We can see on the right of the screen, we have an image here that shows 4 sections. So we need to begin with an introduction, we need to have an overview, and we need to have 1 or 2 body paragraphs. 1 or 2 is fine. I'm going to explain a little bit more about these sections. So what is the structure? The structure begins with an introduction. Now, this is the paraphrase of the question that you will have on your IELTS test next to the image. So these describe what is shown in that graph or that process or that map. We need to start in this way. The second thing we need to do is to write an overview of the main features. Now, we're not going into detail at this point. We're just writing an overview or a very general summary of the key features that we've identified from looking at the graphic that we're given. The key features that we identify here then inform our body paragraphs, and this is where we can pull the data and the numbers and the percentages from the information that we're given to write the rest of our report. Here's an example of a task 1 report. We're not going to read this in detail, we're just going to look over it to see the structure and how it's being created by the student. So if we look at the first paragraph, we can see that the student has taken the question, they've paraphrased it, we're going to look more at this in a few minutes, and they've just told us very briefly here what exactly the graphic shows. The next stage, the next paragraph, we see begins with the word overall. So this is the overview. The student has looked at that graphic, they've looked at what the key features are of that graphic. Again, we're going to look at this a little bit more in detail later on. And they've identified those key features, and here they've given a very brief summary of what those key features are. The next thing to do is to develop the report about those key features, and in the next 2 paragraphs we can see here that the student has used different figures, prices, etc. from the graph to expand and compare It's very important in academic writing task 1. Compare the main features that they spoke about in the overview. So as we said, when we write the introduction, it's very important that we paraphrase the question that we have on the IELTS test. Now we need to look at what paraphrasing is and how we go about doing it. So there are 2 ways we can do this. We can do this by using synonyms or by using word families. So what is a synonym? A synonym is a word that has the same meaning as another word. So we can use it as an alternative to replace that other word in a sentence. This is an important skill. The examiner wants to see that you can be flexible with language, that you have a good level of language, and you can take whatever the words are given to you on your test paper and you can transform them into your own words. We're going to look at some examples of this. Now on the left of the screen, in the purple bubbles, we can see some words related to an academic writing task 1. And on the right, we can see some synonyms for these words in the green bubbles. Some of these are very easy to identify. For example, from 2016 to 2020, we can just change this slightly between 2016 and 2020. Okay, it's not necessary to paraphrase every single word that we have in the question, but we do have to look at pulling out the important words and those key words and making sure that we can try to write it in a slightly different way. So now you're going to have a go. If you look at the first question below this video on your screen, you will see the word chart. Now, what I'd like you to do is look at the options and choose from the selection of words in the green bubbles on the right, choose the synonym for the word chart. I'd like you to do that now, and I'm going to give you 10 to 15 seconds to do so. Okay, so hopefully you chose the word graph. We can say a chart, we can say a graph. They are synonyms of each other. Next, look at the next question below this video on your screen. You will see the number of. I'd like you to have a look, please, and select the correct option. So hopefully you chose the word how many. So both of these talk about quantities, and depending on the context of the sentence, we can use them as synonyms to write the same thing in a different way. Okay, next question below your screen relates to people. Now, people is a very general word. There are many different types of people. If we look at people in particular contexts, it's often a good idea to choose a more specific word to talk about those particular people. This is a really good thing to do in your IELTS test. So have a look at the next question below this video and choose a good synonym for people. Okay, hopefully you chose the word citizens. Now, citizens are people who live in a particular area, the citizens of a city or a country, for example. So this can be a more specific word than just using the very general word people. That's a good thing to do. Next question below your screen, cities. Please have a look at the next question and choose the correct synonym. Okay, hopefully you chose the word urban areas. Notice here that we've gone from one word, cities, to two words, urban areas. That's fine. In a lot of cases, when you're looking for synonyms, you're looking for alternative ways. It doesn't always have to be just one word or just two words. That can change as long as the meaning remains the same. Okay, the next question on your screen looks at the word shows. Okay, have a look please and choose the correct option. Okay, this was a very easy one because we only have one option left, which is illustrates. Now, often when we get the graphic or the map in IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, it will say the graph shows, and we need to be able to use a different word in its place. So the graph shows or illustrates or provides information about. We can use all of those as synonyms. That's a really good thing to do. Okay, so what is a word family? A word family is a group of words that are related, just as we're related to people in our families, but their word type or class is different. By word type or class, we mean, for example, an adjective, a verb, a noun, or an adverb. The words have something in common. They come from the same root or the same stem, but we change usually the endings or the suffix of the word, sometimes the prefix at the beginning of the word, to change the word class. We're going to look at some examples. So on screen, we can see in the center the verb live. Now the verb live has many members in its family, many words that are similar to it, but they have a different word type or a different word class. We're going to be looking for 3 different adjectives related to live and 1 noun. Now, if you look at the next question below this video on your screen, you will see that there are several options, and I'd like you to choose the 4 correct options from lovely, livingness, life, livelihood, alive, livid, lively, or living. I'm going to give you 10 to 15 seconds to do that. Okay, so here are the answers on screen. What we can see, in fact, is that the word live has this stem to it. Yes, the verb live. From live, we can get the adjective living, we can get the adjective lively, or the adjective alive. Now, these are 3 different adjectives. We'd use them all in different situations or different contexts, but they all come from the same word family. And finally, we have a noun here, which is life. So this is a really important thing. It's a really good thing you can do when you're preparing for your IELTS test. Think about word families, think about how to form different words from the same root or the same family, because that's going to be very, very useful for paraphrasing in writing and also in your speaking exam. Even in your reading and your listening tests, you're going to be hearing these different words. Paraphrasing is used all across the IELTS test, so this is an incredibly important skill. Okay, so what is paraphrasing then? We've looked at synonyms, we've looked at word families, and paraphrasing is using these to change the words in a sentence so that it looks different, but it has the same meaning. It's really important that we concentrate on the fact that the meaning has to be the same if we're going to paraphrase. Okay, here in this sentence on screen, you may recognize some of the words that we saw before, and we could paraphrase this sentence in this way. Also, you may recognize some of these words from before. So instead of shows, we've changed to illustrates. Instead of people, we've talked about citizens. Instead of cities, we've talked about urban areas. And I'm sure in this sentence you can see the other paraphrased words that we used before. So in academic writing task 1, whatever you get on the paper, the question that you get in your test, you need to think about paraphrasing it so that you say the same thing in a different way to open and introduce and begin writing your report. We're going to look at an example here, okay, of exactly how we might do this. So let us read here on the left-hand side. The line graph shows the number of people traveling to one company by 6 different methods, namely walking, cycling, driving and public transport between 2012 and 2019. This is what the graph shows, and we're going to just zoom in here to show that. So at the bottom we can see walking, cycling, driving, and then we have public transport, bus, train and underground. And if we look here, we can see that the number of people, this is the number of thousands of people, and it's the methods of travelling to work in the UK. So we've got this in our question. It's important to think that we need to paraphrase this part. So this whole first section is what we need to paraphrase. The second section that we can see at the bottom here, this is the same for all of the IELTS Academic 1 task questions. So it always tells us to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. Obviously, we don't need to paraphrase that. We just need to paraphrase this first section at the top, which is specific to this task. Okay, so we're going to have a look at that question again. Here we can see it on screen. The line graph shows the number of people travelling to one company by 6 different methods, namely walking, cycling, driving and public transport between 2012 and 2019. Now we're going to look at 3 different possible paraphrases of this question, and what I would like you to do in the question below this video is to say which of these 3 sentences is the best paraphrase. So let's have a look at what we've got. Number 1, the line chart shows the number of people going to one company in 6 different ways between 2012 and 2019. The line chart illustrates the proportion of travellers' means of getting to work at one business. And number 3, the line chart illustrates the amount of employees at one company that travel to work on foot, by bike, by car, or using public means of transportation from 2012 to 2019. Take a look at that question below this video now, and I'm going to give you 10 to 15 seconds to choose which you think is the best paraphrase. Okay, so the best paraphrase here is number 3. Now this part talks, this section, number 3, talks about all the different parts of the question that we can see. So it talks about the chart or the graph that we see above. It talks, we've got a synonym here for shows, illustrates. It talks about the employees at one company, which we can see here. And we can see the different means of transportation, and we can see the year involved. So all of this information we can see also in the original sentence, but now it's paraphrased. Number 1 that we saw before is not really a very good paraphrase. It talks about the number of people going to one company. It doesn't paraphrase the verb. It doesn't tell us anything about those means of transportation. It doesn't tell us anything about the type, so it doesn't fully paraphrase the question. The second is similar. It doesn't tell us the years example number 2, we don't see anywhere that it's 2012 to 2019, and it doesn't tell us either about the 6 different ways that those employees do so. Okay, we're going to have a look at one more example before we finish this class. So let's have a look at a different question, a completely different question. The bar chart gives information about the number of men and women working full-time or part-time in the UK in 2 given years, namely 2000 and 2018. So we need to think first about which words we think could be good to paraphrase. So I think potentially we want to find a new verb instead of gives information. Maybe the number of men and women, we could probably find a paraphrase for that section. And we could probably find also working full-time or part-time. We could think about paraphrasing other words as well, but let's concentrate on these for now. So the word gives, we could say as an alternative, provides, shows, illustrates, or presents. For information, we could talk about data or numerical data. It would depend very much what type of data was actually shown in that chart. The number of, we could say the amount of. Men and women could be male and female employees. Remember here, we've got a very specific word now. Instead of people, we're looking at employees because we're looking at a working context. So as I said before, this is a really good way to find a very specific alternative to the word people. And finally, working full-time or part-time, we could say working on full or reduced hour contracts. If we used some of those alternatives, we could end up with a sentence that looked like this. The bar chart provides data on the amount of male and female employees in the UK working on full or reduced hour contracts in the years 2000 and 2018. Okay, so that is the end of this class. Remember that if you have any questions, you can click on this chat icon at the top of your web page to send us a message. This is the first of 2 classes, so now it's really important that you do the second class and also do the training and practice activities that are connected to these sessions. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again. Goodbye.